AITA for disowning my parents after inheriting a large sum and refusing to help them out? Throwaway. My parents had a rough marriage, frequently dragging me into their arguments. They always made it seem I was the main cause for all their problems. They had terrible spending habits, and always indulged way above their needs and limits. My grandfather, who had been my rock, became estranged from my parents due to their money-asking behavior. I spent most weekends at his house, where I felt safe and loved, far from the chaos at home. As soon as I turned 18, I moved out of my parents' house immediately and stayed with my grandfather. A month ago, my grandfather passed away. He left me a significant inheritance, money that would change my life. I only received the amount last week. He had always told me to be responsible with money and to never let it control me, something I took to heart after witnessing my parents' financial struggles and irresponsible decisions. After his death, my parents approached me about the inheritance. They were drowning in debt, having taken out loans and credit cards to cover living expenses and buy stuff after my dad lost his job during COVID. My mom works part-time. Their financial issues had escalated, and were now on the verge of foreclosure. They saw my inheritance as a way out. When they asked for my help, I felt a surge of anger. These were the same parents who had belittled me, often making me feel like a burden. I had always been the one to sacrifice my own needs for their sake, and now they wanted to exploit me. After giving it not so much of thought, I decided to refuse their request for financial help. When I told them, their reaction was explosive. They screamed at me, hurling insults and accusations. They claimed I was selfish and ungrateful for all the sacrifices they made for me. My dad's anger quickly escalated to violence. He slammed his fist against the wall, fracturing his own wrist. My mom joined in, yelling and threatening to cut me out of their lives completely, and generally trashing my house. I called the police. When they arrived, my parents were still in a rage, shouting at me, throwing things around and blaming me for their problems. The officers tried to calm them down, but my dad continued to berate me, insisting that I was ruining the family. They ultimately decided to take my parents aside to talk to them separately while I stayed in another room. They came out and asked me whether I wanted to press charges. As a last act of gratitude, I said no, and asked them to wait outside while I had a last talk with them. After the police went outside, my parents were quiet, but the tension in the house was palpable. I told them basically to never contact me again, and if I ever saw them near my house I'd have them arrested. I realized then that I had taken a stand that would forever change our relationship. I had made the choice to prioritize my future and well-being over their demands, even if it meant losing them entirely. They told me the money had gotten into my head, and that I'll face karma, and they hoped I'll suffer immensely. Even though I don't love my parents, I'm left with guilt and uncertainty. I have a chance to build a better life, but it comes at the cost of my conscience and familial relationship. AITA?